What would you do if you watched a video that predicted the end of the world and then realized you couldn't stop it from coming true? And what if, by simply watching, you became part of the curse itself? It began with a trip to an abandoned government facility, a tip from someone who had heard rumors about forgotten experiments. Rows of film reels, dust-covered and ominously labeled Project Nexus, lay undisturbed for decades. I took them home, driven by the kind of curiosity that gets people killed in horror movies. But nothing I'd experienced before, no haunted house, no eerie cemetery, could have prepared me for what was waiting in those tapes. The first reel was unsettling. It showed an ordinary city, people walking, cars moving, everything normal. But then came a blackout, and with it, the start of a horrifying vision. The footage shifted violently. Buildings collapsing, people running in terror as a dark, shapeless entity consumed everything in its path. Each frame was worse than the last, and as I continued to watch, I saw something that sent shivers down my spine, a shadowy figure that seemed to be watching, lurking behind the chaos. Then, as if it knew I was there, it turned and stared straight into the camera, into me. Over the next few days, my life spiraled. Objects moved on their own, shadows flickered in the corners of my vision, and the figure from the tape began appearing around my house. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but then I started hearing whispers, low, unintelligible voices echoing through my rooms. Something had crossed over from the film, and now it was in my world. By the way, if you're into stories like this, make sure to subscribe and check out my other paranormal investigations in the playlist at the top left corner. Trust me, you don't want to miss the one where I barely escaped a cursed temple in Southeast Asia.
Desperate for answers, I researched Project Nexus. Turns out, it was a covert government experiment designed to create predictive media. Film that could show possible futures. But the project went horribly wrong. The entity in the tapes wasn't just a product of special effects. It was real, captured through a ritual that trapped it inside the footage. Watching it meant letting it out, and once it was out, it didn't just predict the future, it shaped it. And the worst part, I'd already set the curse in motion.
I went back to the facility, hoping to find some way to stop this nightmare. That's where I found the documents. Hidden in a locked room was the final piece of the puzzle. Project Nexus hadn't just been about predictive media, it was a government experiment in manipulating time. The entity wasn't just trying to destroy the present, it was rewriting the past and future, collapsing reality into a single point of chaos. Each time someone watched the footage, they became part of its plan to erase existence.
As I read through the files, the air grew colder, and that familiar whispering filled the room. I turned around to find the shadow figure standing in the doorway, but this time, it wasn't alone. Behind it, a second figure emerged, identical to me in every way. My heart raced as I realized that I was no longer just dealing with a ghost or demon. I was facing something far worse. Myself. The figure was a reflection of me, or rather the version of me that the entity had twisted into being. And here's where things get even crazier.
Just as I thought I had pieced it all together, the final reel of Project Nexus played on its own. The screen flickered, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't footage of the city this time, it was footage of me, sitting in front of the very tapes I had just uncovered. The same things I had just done were playing out, frame by frame. The shadow figure was there too, standing behind me in the film, just as it had in reality. The final twist? The last frame showed something that had never happened. It showed me trying to destroy the tapes, but instead of succeeding, I was consumed by the shadow. It was a glimpse of my future, a future I couldn't escape. The more I watched, the more I realized the horrible truth. The entity wasn't just predicting the end, it was ensuring it. Every action I took, every move I made, was part of a loop that had been set in motion long before I ever found the tapes. And there was no way out. If you're enjoying this insane story, hit that like button, subscribe, and click on the bottom left if you want to hear how I once used a scorpion to escape a North Korean prison. It's a wild one. In a final, desperate attempt to stop it, I tried burning the tapes. But as I lit the match, something happened. The walls of my house started to ripple, like reality itself was bending. I looked at my reflection in the window and saw not one, but two versions of myself, one trying to destroy the tapes and the other just standing there, watching. Then the reflection smiled. I dropped the match and ran, but no matter where I go now, I see them, my doppelgangers, in mirrors, in windows, in passing cars. They're always there, always watching. The shadow may have left the tapes, but it hasn't left me. It's a part of me now, and it's growing stronger.
We are one now. You can't run from yourself.
A few days ago, I received a package in the mail. Inside was a USB drive labeled Project Nexus 2.0. The curse had gone digital, and this time there's no way to stop it from spreading. All it takes is one click. Just as I thought I had finally outrun the nightmare, something strange happened. One night, I woke to the unmistakable sound of scratching inside my walls. At first, I thought it was just vermin, but the sound was too deliberate, too rhythmic. My stomach twisted as the scratching took on a pattern, unmistakable now, Morse code. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone, fumbling to decipher it. And then, in the pale glow of the screen, the message revealed itself. "It's not you thereafter." A cold sweat broke out across my skin. My mind raced as I tried to comprehend the meaning behind it. For weeks I had believed the entity's curse was personal, that I was its chosen victim, the one it had come for. But I had been so wrong. This wasn't just about me, it was never about me. The entity wasn't trying to destroy my life, it was using me as a pawn. By telling my story, by revealing the cursed footage, by showing Project Nexus to the world, I had become its messenger, its unwitting accomplice in spreading the curse far beyond what I could imagine. And the worst part, it wasn't just going to stop with me. Panicking, I tried to retrace my steps. Who had I told? How many people had already watched my videos, but it was too late. The views on my latest upload were climbing exponentially, thousands of people watching, sharing, commenting. With every new click, the curse was spreading, seeping into more lives. The entity had hitched a ride on the internet and now it was everywhere. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I kept refreshing my page, watching the numbers climb higher and higher, knowing that with every single view, more lives were being drawn into the nightmare. I tried pulling the video down, but it wouldn't let me. My computer screen flickered, unresponsive, as if the entity itself was stopping me. The shadow figure appeared on the screen once again, its face twisted into a grotesque grin. Suddenly I heard a crash from my living room. My heart raced as I grabbed a flashlight, moving cautiously toward the noise. And there, standing in front of my TV screen, was a figure. Me. Not just a doppelganger, but a fully formed replica, with my face, my clothes, my movements. But the eyes were wrong. Dead. Soulless. It grinned at me, the same twisted smile as the figure in the footage. I backed away slowly, my mind spinning out of control. How could this be happening? And then it hit me. I wasn't the one watching anymore, I was the one being watched. The entity had made its final move. It wasn't just inside the tape or on the screen, it was inside me. Every time someone clicked play, a part of it lived on through them, spreading like a virus. I was no longer the narrator of my own story, I was the cursed. So my advice, if you ever come across something that feels like it's too weird to be real, walk away. Some things are better left forgotten. It's been months since I escaped, or thought I had, from the entity that haunted me through Project Nexus. The doppelganger, the cursed footage, the mind-bending realization that I had become part of something far darker than I could ever imagine. I was sure it was over. But nothing is ever really over, is it? Just when I thought I had severed the connection, it found its way back, and this time it's worse. You see, the last time it was just me, but now, it's spreading, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. It all started with a message, a simple, anonymous email with no subject line. The text was cryptic but all too familiar. You didn't finish it. I should have deleted it, ignored it, moved on. But how could I? The memories of Project Nexus still haunted me, lingering at the edges of my mind like a virus that wouldn't die. I opened the email. There was a single link, a URL to a new video. Another reel from the cursed Project Nexus, the one I had sworn I destroyed. My heart sank as I clicked it. What could be worse than what I'd already seen? The footage started like the others, grainy, unsettling, but with one key difference. This time it wasn't just showing me some ominous future or crumbling cityscape. No, this time, the reel showed me other people watching the footage, rows of faces glued to screens, all watching in horror, eyes wide as if hypnotized, and in every screen there was a reflection of the shadow figure I knew all too well. It was inside their homes now, just like it had been in mine. The next few days were a blur. Comments started pouring in on my YouTube channel, people saying they'd been hearing strange noises in their homes, seeing shadows out of the corner of their eyes. Others said they couldn't sleep, that every time they closed their eyes, they saw the same shadow figure from the Project Nexus tapes. One guy even claimed he'd seen his own doppelganger on the street, just like I had.
At first I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was all just a weird coincidence. Maybe these people were playing along with the story, getting too caught up in the paranoia I had unwittingly started.
But as the days went on, it became harder to ignore. More messages flooded in, each one more disturbing than the last. People were reporting seeing the shadow figure not just in their homes, but in public places, on buses, in shopping malls, even at work. The entity wasn't just contained to screens anymore, it had crossed over, and I was at the center of it. I knew I had to stop it, but I didn't know how. The files, the tapes, everything I had on Project Nexus was gone, or so I thought. That's when I remembered the USB drive labeled Project Nexus 2.0. It had been sitting untouched in a drawer since the day I received it. I dug it out and plugged it into my computer, hoping for answers. But what I found was worse than anything I could have imagined.
The drive contained a directory of IP addresses, thousands of them. Each one linked to someone who had watched the original tapes, someone who had been affected by the curse. There was a pattern. Every person who watched the footage was connected, their devices forming a kind of network. The entity wasn't just haunting individuals anymore, it was using the internet to create a web of influence, controlling more people every day. I realized with growing dread that this wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't just about one cursed video. Project Nexus had evolved. It was becoming a digital epidemic, infecting everyone who came into contact with it. Desperate, I tracked down one of the original researchers involved in Project Nexus. He was a recluse now, living in the middle of nowhere, far from any electronics. He greeted me at his door with hollow eyes and trembling hands, as though he had seen something no human should ever witness.
You shouldn't have come here. It's already too late for you.
He told me that Project Nexus was never meant to be released. It was an experiment in predictive media, yes, but the government had stumbled upon something far worse. A way to manipulate time and space through film, creating not just predictive futures, but altering reality itself. The entity trapped in the tapes was part of this experiment, a byproduct of tampering with forces we couldn't possibly understand. And now, because of me, it was free. It had latched onto me as a conduit, using my channel, my viewers, to spread itself.
You're not just cursed, he whispered. You're its harbinger.
I left the old man's cabin with a sinking feeling. No matter where I went, no matter what I did, the entity would follow me, and worse, it would follow everyone who had seen the footage. The curse had gone viral, and there was no way to stop it now. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I received another message. This time, it wasn't from an anonymous source. It was from me, an email with my name as the sender, from an account I'd never seen before. The subject line was a single word: Endgame. I hesitated but opened it. Inside was a video link, another reel from Project Nexus. But this time, it wasn't showing some abstract nightmare or city in ruins. It was showing me, right there in my apartment, recording this very message. But something was different.
My reflection in the video wasn't moving in sync with me. It was standing still, just watching, its eyes locked onto mine.
Then as I stared at the screen, my reflection did something that made my blood run cold. It smiled, not a normal smile, but a twisted, malevolent grin.
And then it whispered, "You're too late."
Before I could react, the lights in my apartment flickered and the temperature dropped. And there it was, the shadow figure standing in the corner of my room. But this time it wasn't alone.
My doppelganger was there too, its expression mirroring the one from the video.
I'm not sure how this will end, or if it ever will. But if you're watching this, it's too late for you too. You've seen it now. You're part of Project Nexus. The entity has found you, just as it found me. And no matter where you go, no matter how far you run, it will follow.
Just when you think the nightmare can't go any deeper, something horrifying happens.
In the middle of the night, my phone buzzes with a notification. It's a live stream, but the thumbnail is of me. The caption, "Watch what happens next." I'm frozen, staring at the screen until a voice calls my name, coming from the video itself. My reflection on the screen waves at me. I stagger back, but I can't tear my eyes away. Then it turns the camera towards something even worse. It's my apartment door, creaking open. The figure from Project Nexus steps inside, but this time it's holding something. A mirror. Suddenly, I see thousands of faces reflected in that mirror. Faces of people who've watched the video, every viewer who's seen the footage. Your face is there too.
Now we're all connected.
The screen goes black, but I know what's coming. This isn't just about me anymore, it's about all of us. Now, if you want to know what happens next, drop a comment below and tell me if you're ready for part 2. Trust me, things are about to get even crazier. So hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to check out the playlist at the top left if you want to hear about my encounter with a cursed village that almost ended my life. Just be careful. Some stories are better left untold.